You know, it's always slightly embarrassing to have to give tips for women traveling alone. After all, you wouldn't expect me to give tips to men traveling alone. And Indian women are easily the equal, if not the superiors of our men when it comes to courage, when it comes to adventure, when it comes to daring. But sadly, because Indian men are not so advanced, women are sometimes at risk. So, regrettably, here are 5 tips, and all of them have to do with keeping yourself safe. Tip number 1, always check out where you're staying. If you're not safe in your hotel, you're not safe anywhere. Don't just pick something at random from a guidebook or what someone has told you. Always try and go with a personal recommendation. If you can't do that, research the hotel, research. Check every review, check everything you know. Only when you're sure you'll be secure should you make your booking. For the second tip, let's stick with hotels. When you check into a hotel room, always check out the bathroom. Not just for reasons of hygiene, but because it's an indication of how seriously the hotel takes its guests. If the towels are not fresh, if it smells, if it's dirty, check out immediately. If they can't care about hygiene, they won't care about security. And even if the hotel seems okay, and even if the room seems safe, follow basic precautions. Always double lock your door. Never open your door unless it's on a chain. You can see who there is outside. It may not be much, but it's always useful. Strawberry and coconut slush, please.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. That's just that. Thank you. Which brings us to my third tip. You know, unfortunately enough, the vast majority of incidents that we read about involve taxi drivers. So be very careful. I know it's cool to just go on an app and just order a car, but remember that many of these fancy new car companies are really aggregators. They don't check out the drivers, they know nothing about them. So wherever possible, go with a driver from a company you know. Ask a friend who's used that company. Use a national change. It could be crucial. And my fourth tip has to do with photography, not just holiday photography. And don't just check your room for hidden video cameras. Use your phone to take pictures. Take lots of pictures. Take a picture of the guy who checks you in. Take a picture of the guy who serves you. Take a picture of the license number plate of the taxi you're driving in. Take a picture of the guy who drives you. Mail them to your friend. In the unfortunate and unlikely event that anything happens to you, they'll know who to blame. But more important, it'll scare the guy. It'll make him realize that there is a record. And so, a final tip. I don't want to recommend pepper sprays, tasers or whatever, but there are perfectly good apps, one by the Government of India, that you should always have. You never know when there will be an emergency. Probably an unnecessary precaution, but hey, precautions always help. Well, this has not been a particularly cheery list of tips, but hey, sometimes it's better to be safe than to be sorry. Next time we are back to our usual upbeat tone. Keep the questions coming, and remember, you can ask me anything. If you're going on holiday this summer and you're not going to the southern hemisphere or to say Iceland, get used to one thing. It's going to be hot wherever you go. So the sensible traveler always packs for the summer, keeping in mind that there's going to be heat. Here are my 5 top tips on what to carry. First of all, be ready for the sun. Even if it's not hot, there's going to be lots and lots of sun. If you're standing in a queue to get into a museum, if you're out on a beach, if you're out on the streets even, the sun is going to beat down on you. So always take sunblock, always take sunglasses, always take a cap to protect yourself from the sun. It's much easier to get sunstroke than we realize. Remember that no matter where you go in the summer, you're going to sweat. And one place where it's particularly annoying to cope with sweat is your feet. So don't ever pack big fancy shoes and lots of socks. Always try and keep your feet as free as possible. pack chappals, pack open-toed sandals, or if you want to go Italian, pack loafers, but wear them without socks. If you stood in a queue to check in or say to get into the Vatican in the height of summer, there's one smell you'll never forget, and that's the smell of body odor. When people sweat and the sweat stays within their bodies, they always stink. You don't want to be like that. So here's tip 3. Look for the right fabrics. If you wear anything that's synthetic, you will sweat more and the sweat will cling to the fabric. Always wear cotton or wear linen. Wear something that's natural. That's the key. If you're traveling within India or within Asia or even in other parts of the world, remember there will be insects. Whenever I travel, I pack mosquito repellent, I pack a cream, I pack something that keeps the insects at bay. Even a citronella candle will do. But never ever forget that when you go on holiday, the insects will come with you. Remember that no matter where you go, if you're out in the summer, there will be a time of day when it's too hot to do anything. Usually that's the time that stretches from lunchtime to tea time. Ideally, you should get up relatively early, make the most of the morning, and then make the most of the evening. So what do you do in the afternoons? Well, ideally you should stay indoors. You should pack lots and lots of books, or if you're using Kindle, you should download lots and lots of books. Take magazines. If you're traveling with children, take toys, take things that will keep them occupied, or best of all, take DVDs. Most people have DVD players. If they don't want to watch something on your computer or you don't trust them with your computer, put on a DVD, keep them entertained. Otherwise, the worst part of traveling in summer can be the afternoon. So that's it, 5 tips on what you should pack for the summer. But we'll do more next time, more interesting tips. You can ask me whatever you want because our motto is, ask me anything. The romance of the road. There's something incredibly romantic and incredibly wonderful about going somewhere on the road in your own car with your own family. But here are some tips, some things you must remember. Remember that traveling by car is not necessarily the most efficient way of getting there. So the only point of driving is if you treat the drive itself as the adventure. The destination isn't that important. So always make plans, always decide where you're going to stop, always make the ride a little bit more than the arrival. That's tip 1. Remember that because the road trip is the point of the whole exercise, you're going to need photographs. So what you must be prepared to do is stop every 20 minutes. The moment you see something exciting, something interesting, stop and take a picture. If you're traveling with kids, if you're traveling with your wife, take pictures with them. Take whatever beautiful spot it is that's in the background along with them. Many, many years later, you'll look at those pictures, you'll remember that trip, and you'll remember that holiday. As you can see, I'm traveling alone, but most times when you take a road trip, it'll be with your family. And family means kids, which leads us to tip number 3. Kids enjoy road trips, but only up to a point. The most common thing a kid will say on a road trip is, "Are we there yet?" So remember, you have to keep kids entertained. Bring books, bring snacks, bring games, bring all kinds of things so that they don't get bored. And there's the other slightly embarrassing matter of bladder control. You and I may be able to do it, kids can't do it. So always plan ahead, always check where there's a loo. It sounds silly, but it helps. And this is a slightly downbeat tip, but it's probably important. Remember that things can go wrong. Don't travel at night. There are always drunken truck drivers on the road. Travel during the day. Don't take the line that you will depend on GPS. There will be large stretches of the highway when you won't get a signal. Always take physical maps with you. And always take, I think, some kind of first aid kit. Somebody might get a headache, somebody might get scratched, and when you're miles from nowhere, there's no doctor to turn to. And for a last tip, here's something that's very close to my heart. The best food in India is not in the 5-star hotels. It's here on the highways, on the roads. Whether it's a roadside dhaba in the Punjab or a toddy shop in Kerala, that's where you'll get the really good food. So don't pack sandwiches, don't pack parathas. Stop everywhere along the way. Eat your meals on the road. I promise you, you won't regret it. So that's it for this week. Keep the suggestions going. Tell me what you want to hear, because you know our motto, ask me anything. Well, I hope you're enjoying the videos, but if you want to know more about my travels, get more travel tips from me, there's an easy way of doing it. Just subscribe. Subscribe to Ask Me Guru.